My name is Jasmine. I am 32 years old and I currently live in Surrey, British Columbia. I've completed 125 plus hours of the EESystem. I had a traumatic brain injury in September of 2020 due to a motor vehicle accident. I went from being a high functioning person with multiple jobs, living on my own in the West End in my 20s, going to school full time and doing all that, to just really struggling with even very basic tasks after my brain injury. So I couldn't be in the light. I couldn't do basic things like my cousin would come over once a week just to help me make my bed. I couldn't brush my hair, couldn't be around people. So I was having a lot of ongoing issues. I had actually attended a breathwork session there through one of my spiritual mentors, Sal Buller, and I very much so trust her judgment. And she spoke very highly of Maahi Wellness and the owner, Dee. And upon being there for a breathwork session, Dee was talking about a pilot program that she was running, as pilot program / immersion program. So in that introduction that she was giving to everyone, she was talking a lot about brain injury as well. And I remember just sitting there thinking, this is crazy. All the things that I'm struggling with. And I really, really wanted to give it a shot for myself. And that's why I decided to enroll in the pilot program at Maahi Wellness Center. I joined the pilot program upon hearing about changes people had with brain injury. I also heard about people being able to reverse their cancer markers. And I just knew intuitively that this was going to be a really good fit for me. The biggest change that I received is just not having to think about becoming regulated. My body and mind kind of just have been regulating themselves. When I'm in a stressful situation, I've been in stressful situations where normally it's I would have to remind myself to take a deep breath. But what I'm noticing now is in those stressful situations that my body is just automatically kind of taking those deeper breaths for me. So just notice, even in the first month of being at Maahi, with my live blood analysis, it showed that I needed to be on a cortisol manager. Now I'm not, right? So just my body in itself is just actually being able to regulate itself, which I really needed to be able to do that after my car accident. Before, when I would have a stressful situation, I would get very agitated and continue to feel irritated throughout the day. And that irritation would just really build throughout the day for me. There would be no calm down. One thing would happen and then the other things would just continue to build on to that. I wouldn't be able to really bring myself down to center without hours of meditation or something like that. And I would get home at the end of the day and I would be really irritated and I would be anxious and I couldn't have a conversation with my family when I would get home, just because my nervous system was so dysregulated. I was driving downtown one day and I was actually leaving Maahi and I was going to my other clinic because I have other clinics that I attend due to my brain injury. And I was on my way to my other clinic and my car actually ran out of gas right in front of the law courts, on House Street, right during prime rush hour traffic. So I have my emergency lights on and all these vehicles are honking their horn at me. They're angry. They think that I'm probably picking somebody up from the courthouse and I'm just parked illegally, They didn't necessarily think that I was having an actual emergency. In that situation, I normally would have been crying and panicking and freaking out. And I have a Bluetooth device in my vehicle, so I was on the phone with a friend while this was happening and I just excused myself from the conversation, told her I was going to call her back. I called BCAA, I dealt with it. And then while I waited, I was on the phone with her and I even said to her, I was can you believe how regulated my nervous system is right now? Because I knew that it wasn't the most ideal situation. However, there was nothing I could do about that situation. And whenever there are situations in life that we don't have control over, that's usually when you're going to feel the most upset and stressed out. And I was able to really remain calm and, I knew that everything was going to be okay. And I was able to continue on with my day like nothing had happened. When I got home that night, in my head, it wasn't a big event that had happened because I just dealt with it as it had come. It was just another experience. Well, before I started my pilot, the same situation just would have made me feel very frazzled. I wouldn't have been able to function probably for the rest of the day. I would have most likely been crying and upset that people were being so not very kind or understanding of my situation either. After all that was done, I was actually able to meet my cousin because he was helping me pick up a recliner for me. I can't do any heavy lifting right now, but yeah, I was able to meet them and get all that stuff done and just kind of direct them on what to do. But whereas before I would have had to call him and tell him that I couldn't deal with it. I needed to go home. I had to go home to lay down or take a nap, or I just wouldn't have been able to function. So before I joined the pilot, I had multiple issues, including a dysregulated nervous system. Back then, my first issue was inability to regulate emotions. Back then, something very simple could happen, I'm running a few minutes behind, and I would start feeling very overwhelmed, and I would feel like I most likely would start crying. I just wouldn't be able to handle things very well. On a scale of 1 to 10, I used to be so overwhelmed that I believe I'd probably be a 20 out of 10. I would feel very embarrassed about being overwhelmed all the time. I used to be constantly apologizing to my friends and family because I knew that's not how I was before my car accident. And I knew that it wasn't normal for me or normal in general to just feel like I had no control over my emotions or myself. I would say I'm probably at a 6 out of 10 now. I'm much better at regulating my emotions, especially after doing my program at Maahi. I'm noticing a massive shift with that. If I'm having an uncomfortable conversation or triggering conversation, I can stay neutral longer and the emotion won't just take over me. I can see the emotion, but it just doesn't take over. And this has given me freedom because I'm able to express myself better and ask for what I need. It's making it so if something does upset me, I have the ability to process it on my own or with a therapist instead of just projecting it onto someone or the situation. This makes me feel hugely empowered, and it's changing many of my relationships. I'm actually able to hold space for others again. I used to always be the person that other people came to with their problems, and just during the span of my brain injury, I couldn't really be that for people. I mean, I would try, but I would just get very dysregulated very quickly, and it would take a lot of time and energy and all the tools in my tool belt to bring myself back to regulation, which it's not really the case anymore. My second issue was my inability to process things using my brain and my cognition. Back then, I would say I was on a scale of 1 out of 10. If I was responding to a text message and somebody was talking to me, I would become easily agitated. I wouldn't be able to handle all that. My cognition could only handle doing one thing at a time. So if I'm doing a text or writing out an email and someone is speaking to me at the same time, I would oftentimes snap at the person that was speaking to me just because I just couldn't handle it. My nervous system couldn't handle it. And if I was in a louder environment, like a coffee shop, my nervous system would get completely overwhelmed from all the sensory input, even simple things like driving in my vehicle with the windows down. And it would get to the point where I would have a meltdown and sometimes just start crying, or, I've been in my car before where somebody's tried to roll the window down where I snap at them. And because I'm not even able to communicate why I'm getting overwhelmed, I just snap because I can't handle it, and they don't understand why they can't roll their window down. You know what I mean? It's just the noise and all that, it would just completely overwhelm me. So the way that I would deal with it now is my nervous system's just become a lot healthier, and when I start to get overwhelmed, I can recognize it before it happens and I can react differently. I'm able to communicate better and function better, and I'm able to avoid bad situations. I'm able to walk away a lot of the time instead of something turning into a fight or an argument, or I'm really able to, my body's able to just regulate itself, and I'm able to steer through the situation a lot differently than I would have handled it a few months ago. The third issue that I had was really high stress levels. Back then, when I started this program, my stress levels were a 30 out of 10. They were very high. I was very stressed out because I just had a very full-time rehab schedule. And, as well as there's financial stressors and environmental stressors, just living with my family as well while trying to heal myself. And all this compounded by the fact that it was really hard for my brain to actually process multiple things at the same time. Not being able to handle any stress, so my ability to handle stress went out of the window completely. My mind and body would just shut down. I had to stop talking to so many people as well. If it was going to upset me or if it was going to be a stressful situation or dramatic, I wouldn't really necessarily be able to handle it the way that I would be able to handle it before my brain injury. Now with my the stress levels, I would say it's a 5 out of 10 instead of a 30 out of 10. I saw a lot of difference in my live blood analysis as well, my live blood analysis results. I was initially put on a cortisol manager for my high stress levels and my high cortisol levels. I'm actually completely off the cortisol manager now because I've been able to regulate my cortisol levels a lot better now. And my body's able to handle stress a lot better. In the span of all this happening, my cat got injured. And it's like in the past, it's like if he's ever been sick or injured or anything, I've not been able to take on that and have the stress of taking care of. He's a Bengal, so he's very active and he needs a lot of extra attention. So just like the stress of taking care of him and, trying to attend my full-time rehabilitation schedule, I would have had to most likely cancel a lot of appointments and I wouldn't have been able to handle it. But this time around, I was even thinking like, oh my God, like I'm gonna have to cancel my rehabilitation appointments and potentially my appointments at Maahi because I really became that overwhelmed that I was like, there's no way that I will be able to do it. But I was able to actually bring myself back to center very, very quickly. I was able to continue going to Maahi and continue doing my stuff and just getting my parents to help me and help oversee him, which also stressed me out. But it's like just that sense of like letting go of control. I was able to do that and bring myself back to center again and just tell myself it's going to be okay and really trust the process and go through that process. And he's recovered now and he's good. It was a really tough month for me, but I'm actually amazed that I was able to do all that and still function. And I was still having so much more other things coming up on my plate. So yeah, it's a huge difference. My fourth issue is my sleep, which was completely dysregulated. I was sleeping all day because of the accident, because I couldn't handle any light. I would be awake at night for a long period of time, usually. Like that was the only time I would be awake. Even like, for example, like one candle would just be like way too much light for me. And I was only using candlelight at that time. I couldn't socialize or be around people. So back then I would say it was about a 30 out of 10. I had just very poor sleep hygiene. I would have to take lots of naps during the day. Sometimes I would have a good week or something like that. And, maybe I was like going to bed early, but I would still have to meditate for hours and still not be able to fall asleep properly without that and certain soothing music. And I would just need a lot of help, like a lot of aid to go to sleep. It wasn't an easy task for me, And because I wasn't sleeping well, that added to my brain fog and like my chronic fatigue and not having energy in order to stay awake. I needed to have coffee. I was drinking like 2 iced coffees a day, and that would actually make it so I could be awake and function through the day. Now, after about 125 plus hours in the EESystem, my quality of sleep is significantly better. Before I would set like 20 alarms in the morning, like I would have to have like so many different alarms set, like they would be set like 5 minutes apart because I knew that like I would have such a difficulty waking up and I would just have like very like restless kind of sleep. So when I would wake up, I wouldn't feel rested. I would still feel like extremely tired, just extremely fatigued. Now I only actually set like 2 or 3 alarms. Sometimes I only set 1 even, and I actually wake up. I wouldn't remember to wake up before and I would just be like snoozing my alarm. It would make me late for things. Like I just wasn't functioning at the level that I knew that I wanted to be functioning. Now it's rare that if I snooze my alarm, and when I do sleep now, my quality of sleep is so much better. Even if I'm not getting like a full night's sleep because I'm really busy right now with my rehabilitation program at Maahi, I still notice that my quality of sleep is so much better that like sometimes it's not about necessarily the amount of length of time, even just the quality of the rest. So I'm noticing like huge changes there. And I even know that like when I'm done this program that like my sleep is just going to be so much better. Like I actually feel like I've kind of like been sipping on the fountain of youth. My fifth issue was my ability to focus or concentrate. So on a scale of 10, I'd say my ability to focus back then was a 0 out of 10. So my focus had been severely affected. I am seeing a psychologist that specializes in brain injury, and she ran an EEG for my brain. And it showed that due to my traumatic brain injury, I just wasn't able to concentrate the same way after. To finish a simple task, I had to put all my focus into completing a task. Most of the days, if I got 1 or 2 things done, like I would have a checklist, and if I would get certain things things on the checklist, I'd feel like extremely accomplished. But then I would have to sleep just the rest of the day to just make up for the overwhelmed that I was feeling. Now my ability to concentrate is so much better. An example would be even just like me being able to record this testimonial. I wouldn't have been able to do this before. I would have just been like very off topic. It would have been really hard for me to stay on task. So yeah, just being able to focus on a task at a time and completing the task that I'm doing rather than like starting one thing and then just like swirling off and then doing a million other things. I think that shows a huge improvement in my ability to concentrate. My sixth issue was my loss of ability to multitask. I just wasn't able to multitask at all after my brain injury. I would have to do a lot of unitasking, so just doing one thing at a time. If I was, for example, on the phone with a friend and I was trying to multitask, like they would become very aware that I was distracted and I was doing something else. Like they would know, they could tell, because it's like I would be so checked out of the conversation. I wouldn't be able to hold the conversation with them. And I would try to still listen to them while doing something else, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Where before I used to be a huge multitasker before my brain injury. My ability to multitask has gotten like significantly better. I can concentrate now, and I'm also able to multitask in a much more like significant way. I can do more things, and if someone is talking to me, I can still do other tasks at the same time. It's gotten a lot better. In the past, I was in the kitchen doing something, I would get really irritable and really frustrated if somebody was trying to talk to me or ask me questions, and I wouldn't understand why I would get like that, where now I'm able to recognize what's going on, and it's like it's me like just kind of being like really like dysregulated, just overwhelmed, sensorily overwhelmed, where now I can say to somebody like, hey, I need a second, I need to do this first, and then you can ask me the question you're gonna ask. My ability to multitask went from about a 0 out of 10 to about a 6 to 7 out of 10. So my seventh issue was irritability. So back then my irritability levels were about a 20 out of 10. I would feel especially irritable around my mom and other family members. I'm a very kind person. Even in my day-to-day, I would become so agitated and irritable that I would come off as a serious bitch. This is the nervous system being completely overwhelmed and overextended. It would take a lot of self-control on my end to just not snap and not act like that. Now I would say my irritability is like significantly better. I'm thinking of like my most difficult situations even. Let's just say, I'm dealing with something very difficult and I have a lot going on. I'm juggling a lot of things in that moment and I'm about to snap. I can kind of see that irritability coming on. I can see that snappiness coming on, and I'm able to react differently. I notice that my brain's able to kind of signal to my body to calm down. So I am starting to see those shifts and improvements that way, which I've been striving towards now for years, and I've not been getting the same results that I thought that I would get. With the EESystem, I'm progressing very quickly. So my eighth issue was having major anxiety. My anxiety was just about I would say 20 out of 10, if not more. The best way to explain it is that I just really couldn't use my brain. The moment that I would think of anything, I would feel anxious and unwell. If people asked me questions, I would just become extremely overwhelmed. Simple things for me just felt like a mountain that I had to scale. Like it would be simple tasks for other people, and for me, it would just be this constant uphill battle. I'd be struggling with this major anxiety. And, every single day, like I said, at just some point, I would just get extremely overwhelmed. I would just constantly kind of think to myself, oh my God, what's going on with my life? Even though I had extremely good coping mechanisms, it just felt like nothing really made a difference, or I just had to constantly use so many of my coping mechanisms to kind of get down to a baseline. Now, at about 125 plus hours at the EESsystems, my anxiety is about 5 out of 10. It's a very big leap from a 20 out of 10. It's just such a huge difference. I went every single day stressing and worrying about what's going on to happen to me, in my health. Even if something horrible really happens to me, I'm able to self-regulate pretty quickly now. I was so dysregulated that there was no choosing, and now I feel like I have a choice. I'm able to get down to bring myself back to center a lot faster. And life will still continue on. Life will still go on. There'll be situations in my life that maybe I'll have opportunities to become anxious about. However, I'm able to recognize it in those moments and just kind of bring myself back to the present moment. So the final issue that I was experiencing was getting dysregulated due to challenging life situations. I would say it was initially at about a 30 out of 10. I would just spiral and dysregulate for weeks and months, sometimes over certain things that would happen. Just as an example as well, like even like when my cat got sick recently, I was upset and stressed, but within a few days I would have become regulated again. So when dysregulation happens now, I'm able to bring myself back to a center pretty quick and regulate myself again. Well, honestly, I have been recommending it to a lot of people. I've been talking to other people that have maybe not experienced scalar wave frequency before, and also people that are familiar with it. And I've just been telling them that I'm going to be doing the program and how I feel like it's just making such a huge impact for me and made a huge impact for me. And it's not always just about nervous system. I know that we're really focusing on nervous system with the program that we're doing, but the scalar wave frequency, it heals so many other things when you're in there. So there's just so many other added benefits as well. Just for myself, like I was calling my friends crying like every single day before, and I don't do that anymore. And I think for the people that are in my life, like they already see such a huge improvement and shift within myself. With my family, I'm much less irritable with them. I'm less snappy. They see a shift in me too. I mean, I'm extremely busy and I'm tired, but I'm not just like losing it all the time. And I'm just much more centered. I'm much more regulated. I'm reminding myself of how I used to kind of be closer to the beginning, like when I wasn't brain injured, just when I wasn't brain injured and I was just a high functioning person. I feel like I'm slowly really making giant strides back there, and that's saying a lot. The changes that I've been experiencing have been happening so quickly and rapidly. It would have taken me years potentially to get to this point, which is really amazing. And I really want other people to experience a change like that. I mean, when we talk about inner work and self-healing and things like that, it's always that healing takes time and things like that, which is true. But when you're exposed to a modality of healing, that's really speeding up the time frame of healing so quickly. I mean, I think that's really amazing, especially in a society where people don't necessarily always want to wait or take the scenic route for things.